All right, welcome back to Mr. P. Helps with Algebra 2. This is Unit 2, Topic 1, SLT1. But this is 1C, so now we're getting into solving equations. We just used factoring to solve equations in the last video, and now we're going to be solving using two more strategies, which is the square root method and quadratic formula. All right, so we learned in the last one that zero product property means anything times zero is zero. So if I just set each one of these equal to zero and solve, then anything times zero is zero. So this means k is -1 and k can also be 5. Over here we have 4a plus 5 equals 0. Remember, it's already set equal to 0. If it wasn't, then I would have made it equal to 0. Subtract 5 from both sides and then divide by 4, so we get -5/4. Over here, a plus 1 equals 0, so a must be -1. There's your two answers. All right, now, as I just mentioned a second ago, when you set it equal to 0, then anything times 0 is 0. So I need to get rid of this 5. You can't subtract 5 from here or here, but you have to subtract it from the other constant. So n squared plus 7n plus 10 equals 0. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to need to do is factor this. What two numbers give you 10 but also add up to 7? That would be 5 and 2. N plus 5 and n plus 2. Because 5 times 2 is 10 and 5 plus 2 is 7. Now I can set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So n plus 5 equals 0 and n plus 2 equals 0. So it looks like my answers are -5 and -2. Alright, so same thing here. I want to get it equal to 0. So x squared minus 11x plus 24 equals 0. What two factors of 24 also add up to -11? And that would be, well, they both have to be negative also, because a negative times a negative is a positive. So that'd be 8 and 3. So that's x minus 8 and x minus 3. -8 times -3, -8 plus -3. And then set each factor equal to 0 and solve. Looks like our answer is going to be 8. Oops. X equals 8, not 8 equals 8. That's definitely a true statement, but not the answer we're looking for. And then x equals 3. All right. Okay, so now we're using square root method. So in this question, perfect example, let me move myself over here. If I take the square root of both sides, so the square root of x minus 4 squared is x minus 4, because the square root of anything squared is itself, because square root and squares, as we had visited before, are inverses of each other. And the square root of 16 has two different answers, both positive and -4, because positive 4 times positive 4 is 16, and -4 times -4 is also 16. All right, so I'm going to solve it twice. I'm going to do x minus 4 equals one of those answers, positive 4, and x minus 4 equals -4. Add 4 to both sides means x is 8, and add 4 to both sides and x is 0. So there's two answers, 8 and 0. All right, first thing first, I need to add 1 to both sides, and that's going to give me x squared minus 47 equals 0. Okay, I think this question's, it's not factorable. I don't know if that's the way it was designed or not, but if you subtracted 1, it would have been -49, then it would have been differences of squares. But no, this is not factorable anymore. Minus 8 from both sides gives me 2x minus 1 squared equals 4. Okay, square root of both sides. That leaves me with 2x minus 1 equals both positive and -2. So now I can solve it twice, and I'm kind of running out of room here. 2x minus 1 equals 2, and 2x minus 1 equals -2. Solve it twice. Plus 1 plus 1, 2x equals 3, x equals 3 halves. Plus 1 plus 1, so that's 2x equals -1. Divide by 2 on both sides. X is -1 half. Okay, so the idea of square root method is, well, if you've got a perfect square on one of the sides, why not take advantage of it? So why not just take the square root of both sides? Do the same thing to both sides, then you're not changing the equation any. This one would have worked out also. So square root of both sides, move myself again. I get x minus 1 equals both positive and -5. Then I set it equal to both answers, both positive 5 and -5, and solve. For this one looks to also be work. 3x minus 4 equals both positive and -1. Solve it by setting it to equal to both. Add 1 makes this one 11. Okay, so x plus 5 squared equals 11. So we don't have the same issue we had over here. This is factorable. It's not like this one. It wasn't factorable. But we are going to get a decimal. So we're going to get x plus 5 equals the square root of 11. So second square root of 11 is about 3.3. It's 3.316, but I'm going to say it's about positive or negative 3.3. And then solve that twice. Do x plus 5 equals 3.3 and x plus 5 equals negative 3.3. Solve it twice. Answer over here is about 8.3. Technically I should be putting about, and answer over here would be about, okay, so if I subtract 5 from both sides. Sorry, so, that's what I get for not showing my work. So this one wasn't right. So this one, okay, it's not erasing very well. Okay, there we go. So if I subtract 5 from both sides, then x is going to be equal to negative, I think that's about 2.7. Doing it in my head, sorry. And this one's going to be negative 8.3. All right, quadratic formula. So here is the quadratic formula. This is just another way. This is the only method that I'm going to show you that always works. No matter what the equation is, doesn't matter if it's factorable, any of that, this method always works. It's the only method, really, that always works. Unless you're putting it into the calculator, then I guess graphing will also always work as well. First I need to do is set it equal to, set it equal to 0. So x squared minus 3x plus 7 equals 0. So first always set the equation equal to 0. And then you can plug the numbers in. So a is 1, b is negative 3, c is 7. So negative b. So that's the opposite of negative 3 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's negative 3 squared minus 4 times a times c, all of that divided by 2 times a. Alright, so opposite of negative 3 would be positive 3, plus or minus. This is called the discriminant, what's on the inside. Negative 3 squared is 9, negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, times 7 is negative 28. Now what I'm noticing here is that the discriminant, 9 minus 28, gives us a negative number, which means this question has no real solutions. Because there's no such thing as a square root of a negative, because no number times itself will ever be a negative. So anytime you're discriminant, the discriminant is this portion right here inside the radical. Anytime it's negative, it's going to have no real answers. If it's 0, it's going to have one real answer, and if it's any positive number, it's going to have 2 solutions. I don't think that's going to work. No, it's not. Okay, I don't have a whole lot of room, so I'm going to skip over here to this one. So this is 1, this is 1, this is 1. Okay, a lot of 1s. So negative b, b is negative 1, plus or minus the square root of negative 1 squared minus 4 times a times c, which is also negative 1. All right, divided by 2 times 1. There we go. Opposite of negative 1 is 1, plus or minus square root of negative 1 squared is 1. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times another negative 1 is positive 4. So it looks like this time we're going to have 2 real answers. 1 plus 4 is 5. The square root of 5 is about 2.2. So it's 1 plus or minus 2.2 divided by 2. Now I can solve it twice. Do 1 plus 2.2 divided by 2 and 1 minus 2.2 divided by 2. And there's your 2 answers. Alright, same thing, solving with quadratic equations. Alright, so I'll choose this one. So negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c. All of that divided by 2 times a. Alright, so the opposite of negative 4 is positive 4, plus or minus. Find the discriminant. Negative 4 squared is 16. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, times 16 is minus 16. Okay, perfect example, something we haven't seen yet, where we're going to get 16 minus 16, which is the square root of 0. Square root of 0 is 0. So we get 4 plus or minus 0 divided by 2. This is only going to have one solution, because whether you add 0 or you subtract 0, you're going to get the same answer on top. 4 plus 0 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. There's only one solution here. This is one of those cases where the parabola had a vertex that was literally on the x-axis. And it actually, my picture looks like it was on negative 2, but it was actually over here. So the graph actually looked more like this. But I was just giving you an example. And I think I'm going to do one of the homeworks. Okay, solve each quadratic equation using quadratic formula. Alright, so I'll do the first one. So this is 1. So first thing you need to do is set it equal to 0, then you can solve. So that's negative b, whoops, which is a 6, which is close to what I just drew, plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. Okay, so that's going to become negative 6 plus or minus 6 squared is 36. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 times 8 is negative 32. Looks like the discriminant is 4. 36 minus 32 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. So you get negative 6 plus or minus 2 over 2. Negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. So it looks like we get negative 2 is one of the answers if you add. And if you subtract, you get negative 8. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. There's your 2 answers. Sorry I didn't show all my work. I know that's a very limited amount of space. Probably should only give them 2 questions on this one. But so be it. I'm at the 11-minute mark. I'm going to do one more. Yes. Okay, what about this question right here? Well, first of all, it needs to be ordered correctly. You always put the variables in order from biggest to smallest. So k squared minus 64 equals 0. So there is no b term here. So a is 1, b is 0, c is negative 64. So b is nothing. So the opposite of nothing is nothing. Plus or minus square root of nothing squared minus 4 times a times c. All right, all that divided by 2 times a. Okay, so nothing plus or minus nothing, the square root of nothing. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 64 is 256. Positive 256 divided by 2. All right, so square root of 256 is 16. So it looks like we got plus or minus 16 over 2. Well, this is 0, so that means basically you're going to get, oh no, you're not going to get 2 different answers. Sorry. So 16 divided by 2 is 8, and negative 16 divided by 2 is negative 8. There's your 2 solutions. All right, thanks again for watching. Please give it a like to help you learn something about solving these quadratic formula or the square root method. And in the next video, I think we're going to get to completing the square. All right, thanks again for watching. Have a great day. Subscribe if you haven't done so already.